Good morning. It's Thursday. Unfiltered Spirits happening right now. Like always, I am going to, and we'll wait for her to hop on.
We did
No
it so quick.
issues. No
Ah!
issues. It worked.
Yay, that's great. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, I'm good. It's been a good week.
Yay.
Yeah, there's so much going on. I feel like my life is more busy than it's probably ever been in a lot of ways. It's just going, going, going a lot of days, but it's just the inevitability of the season
Yeah.
with six teenagers and a 9-year-old. It's just
Yeah,
bananas,
that's a
but it's
lot.
fun. And I feel like I'm handling it better than ever. And that's what we're excited to talk about today.
Continuation of motherhood.
Yeah.
It's a fun subject. It's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but it's fun.
Yeah. How
And
are
there's so
you?
much. I'm good. I was actually talking to Destiny. We were just chit-chatting about Jack and I mean everything that we've been dealing with Jack and then I was like, I gotta go. I have my podcast. And she was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm sorry. So I was
Hi,
just chit-chatting,
Destiny.
catching up with her. Destiny got a new job. We're so excited for her.
Oh, that's great.
Um, Destiny is like one of the best moms that I know. She has done so well at not making the same mistakes that she saw her sisters make.
No, come on.
No, I mean that's honest. Like she really has, strived to. She learned. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Like she learned from the mistakes of our own mother, the mistakes that she saw us make as young moms, and I think outside of my mom, I was the first mom example in her life. And she took what she needed from that experience and then left what she didn't, connect with. And she is such a beautiful mom. She connects with her son in such a beautiful way. Like, it's really special to see their relationship with each other. And she, she learned what she wanted to do with her son, and she didn't make the same mistakes that she grew up experiencing. So it's a really beautiful relationship that she has with her son.
I really
She's just
think
a really
that's
good.
what this is all about is like, that's all we can hope for is that the
I
people
can
that we
respect
love do better than we did and that
Yeah,
we break the chains we can and we break the unhealthiness that we can and hope that like I tell my children all the time that I'm doing my best to do better than my parents and I just want them to be the very best version of themselves.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
just
Yeah,
keep
that's what it's about. So we left off last week just kind of chatting about like the kind of mothers that we were and the kind of mothers that well, I think we focus more on what I'm just moving my camera just a little bit. Oops. Um, the kind of mothers that we were and how spirituality has helped us um, cultivate who we are now as parents. So I kind of want to just do a deep dive on um, the realness of who we are as mothers in the beginning, like the mistakes that we made, what we've learned looking back. And I think we touched upon that last week too. I know like for me, I was really like honest about the kind of mother that I was um, before versus the mother that I am now, and how that shaped my children. So I kind of just want to move into like from that into who we are now. Like if we could go back and do it over, how would we
mm-hmm.
change that? If we would change it, which I already know my answer, and just go from there. So I'll let you start.
Well, as I've been thinking about, that question is something unfortunately I'm plagued with. Like, if I could go back, what would I do differently? And
Yeah.
it's gotten so much better. But I think we touched on it last week. But when Chandler, my oldest, graduated high school, I just went into this whole depression based in that kind of shame and regret and like what could I have done differently? And now he's
Mm-hmm.
an adult, and but I think one of the things is patience and the other is presence. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, everything when I was a young mom felt like an emergency.
Yeah.
Everything felt important, and none of it was. Like, if I've learned one thing from my guides, it's that none of this matters. It's like they say it all the time. I
Yeah.
come to them with something and they're like, none of this matters. Like, focus on what matters. None of this matters. And all of those little things, for example, when I had 4 small children and I was totally in over my head, if one of them, couldn't find their shoes and church was about to start in 10 minutes and we needed to go, oh my God, I would
Yeah.
literally freak the fuck out. It was an emergency. I would go into panic mode.
Yeah.
Why? Well, after doing years of healing and trying to get to the root of all of my triggers, I realized that I had this major perfectionist complex. I could not fail. I would not allow myself to fail at anything. And so that tremendous amount of pressure robbed me of so much joy of experiencing my children and life as a young mother. And so, this morning I was doing the dishes, getting ready, we were just in the kitchen getting ready for school. And Anthony, his carpool is supposed to be there between like around 7:40. And at
Okay.
7:38, I tell him to go wait by the window and watch so that, I still am very funny about time, like
Yeah.
punctual, being not making people wait, And he decided he went over there and waited, and then it turned 7:39 and I hear the bathroom door close and I'm like, what the fuck? He just goes in the bathroom at 7:39. Dude, the old me, if that would have happened, I don't know what I would have done, because if he needs to use the restroom, I'm not gonna, but I would have been like, you need to think about getting
Right.
ready beforehand, blah, blah, blah. And of course, that is a lesson that he could be taught in that
Yes.
moment. But what the guides have taught me again and again is, this is not your lesson to teach, or this is not your lesson to learn. And to pause and to think, let's just become curious rather than critical. And this has helped me so much, becoming curious rather than critical. So instead, I took a breath and was like, I'm curious to see how this turns out. And I just became curious rather than critical. And so he finished using the restroom and he came out, and his carpool lady still wasn't there. And he goes, Mom, I'm so proud of myself. I went potty at 7:39 and she's still not here. And I was like, good job, buddy, and
Yeah.
it wasn't negative at all,
Right.
because I decided to take a breath and become curious rather than critical. But that requires letting go of the shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Ask yourself in every moment, what is the worst that could possibly happen right now? If the worst that could possibly happen is that you're late, let it fucking go. And that is such an important thing that I've learned. And we can start to do that. How I learned to be more patient
Mm-hmm.
is to pay attention to the things that do that to me and to
Yeah.
recognize them. It's just awareness. Awareness is the fixer of everything. So that pause when I hear the bathroom door close, my heart immediately begins to race. My armpits start sweating. I'm triggered immediately because I hear that, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna be late, da da da. What are they gonna think of me? Blah blah blah. I failed, so fucking ridiculous, but it's very real. So my best advice for learning patience is to become curious rather than critical about yourself, so that it becomes easier to become curious rather than critical of your children. If you become curious, your breathing starts to quicken, your heart rate starts to quicken, you start sweating, you're like fucking mad.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, just boom, like split second trigger.
Yeah.
If you can practice pausing and being like, oh, this is an opportunity to learn. Like, what if I just breathed right now? What would happen? And become
Yeah.
curious. Like, I wonder what would happen if I did this differently this time. And then becoming really good at not beating yourself up when you don't catch it, because you're not going to catch every single one. That's why it's a practice, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really helped me learn that is, before any guides taught me about the power of the pause. They always say there's power in the pause, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Before I ever learned anything about that, when my children were really little and I had this terrible habit of losing my temper. You know, I was raised by a dad who yelled every time anything happened. And so that was my natural response. And I hated it in myself. I knew I did not want to be a mom that yelled, but it felt impossible. For
Yeah.
years, I would cry myself to sleep because I had screamed at my kids 15 times that day. I just could not figure it out. And it was because of my own feelings of failure. I was taking everything I did, my children did personally, as my own personal failing. And you can't, it's not good for your own children to do that.
No.
And so what I learned is, when I feel that trigger, to count to 10. When I was a young mom, I remember living in that Eagle Mountain house where you and
Yeah.
I met. And I
Yeah.
remember a specific time getting in my ugly ass minivan in that garage, and Thomas couldn't find his shoes. And I remember catching that panic and being like, 1, 2, and I remember slowing down because he still wasn't there at 7, 8, and 9. And I was like, okay, 8, you know,
Yeah.
9. And by the time I get to 10, it just doesn't fucking matter. I'm just like, I can count to 10 again. It doesn't matter, because guess what matters? This little boy's feelings, his
Mm-hmm.
precious feelings, this little soul in my care, he matters. He
Mm-hmm.
matters more than what people think of me being on time, you know?
The energy that
So
we send
patience is
them,
a really big one for me.
sending them out with that ugly energy when we've had an
Mm-hmm.
explosion. I think
I
that's
did
my
that so
biggest
many times.
lesson.
So
That's
many
been
times getting
mine.
ready for school, like sending my children off to school stressed out because I was, you know, and it's all my own feelings of failure. It's all my own work. It had nothing my kids were great. My kids were awesome. They
Yeah.
were being kids, you know. It's my own work to do, and that, I feel like, is the most important thing I teach to moms. But without shame, become curious.
Yeah. So what do you think now that you've learned that lesson and you have a 9-year-old now? So how do you think, like, what's the difference that you see now?
Well, there's just literally no contention. It doesn't happen. It literally doesn't happen. And it's not because he's a different kind of kid than my other kids were. You know, my other kids would we would get in spats, you know, when we were trying to work all of this out. Now it's just all about communication. Anthony knows that he is safe to come and tell me, I don't think what you did just now was very kind to me. I think I deserve better. You know, there was
Yeah.
one time he came in because I said, recently, it was like 6 months ago or something, I was doing laundry and I heard Jonah and Anthony arguing. And I called Anthony in and I was like, because I thought that he had caused it. I thought he was the problem. And I said, you need to do better. And I didn't let him tell me what he was doing. I just thought I knew. You need to do better. And he goes like this. He goes, I think you need to do better. And I paused and took a fucking breath. And I was like, really? I would like to understand that, you know? And he explained the situation. And actually Jonah was at fault. And I said, I really appreciate you telling me how I could do better. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And, you know, he goes, good. Like that. And then I'm all, okay, wait a minute.
Take it down.
Now.
Take it down.
But that's the kind of thing, is like, there's safety. There's safety for me to communicate with AJ without repercussion. There's safety for AJ to communicate with me without repercussion. There's safety for Anthony and all of my children to communicate. This isn't a perfect system, of course, but I literally don't remember the last time there was yelling or contention in our home. I don't remember. You know, it's a real thing, and it happens from working on your own triggers. You know, practicing the pause. Breathing, feeling your body, saying, zooming all the way in. I tell people, zoom all the way in, because your consciousness might be several different places. And what is so heartbreaking that people don't realize is that this is the first generation of children who have this generation of parents who are excessively consuming their screens. There has never been a generation where parents are their consciousness is taken so completely away so much of the time. Think about how our parents had TV and the newspaper. You know, they had the news at night and a sitcom and the newspaper. They were not taken away from their children to another digital dimension. And it breaks my heart to see it. Like all these parents on their phones all the time, scrolling, robbing themselves and robbing their children of precious attention. It's really the first generation that has experienced that kind of regret. And so I teach people to say a mantra to themselves when they're with their children. If your children are coming to you with an issue, Mom, can I talk to you? Zoom all the way in. Figure out where your consciousness is and bring all of your energy back and put it to your child and say, I am here now. I am in my body. Just say that. Say it to yourself. Because your children deserve your precious presence. And the most precious healing gift you can give to your children is presence. Putting your phone face down, never allowing a phone at a dinner table, never allowing a phone at a dinner table, never allowing a phone at a lunch date. No. You know, presence is so precious. I just want to beg all the moms to please put your phones down.
I mean, I see it there. I think that that's a really valid point. I don't want to exclude everybody from that particular scenario, because for me personally, the kind of mom that I mean, you know what kind of mom I am, but I do have a daughter that has to be stimulated more than us sitting down at a table. So we do have electronics at the table for Jackie.
Sure. Of
so
course. There are special situations.
Right. There is another side of that I want to kind of just touch on a little bit, because I think a lot of moms do. This generation of mom, not our generation of mom, because we have older children, but we do have the new generation in our homes now. My older kids didn't have access to electronics like that. You know, my kids did go play outside. They did learn to ride. I mean, my son learned to ride his bike by me saying, here's your bike. Don't come back inside until you've learned how to ride it. It wasn't, you know, I was like, go do it. And I didn't have a phone the way that I have it now. And there's also a whole generation of young parents that their lives do revolve around their electronics because that's their livelihood. So I don't want, and I think, so there are a group of parents that the guilt that they feel because they do put their kids in front of an electronic, or that's the way that they cope with their feelings of inadequacy, is looking through their phone. Like, I don't want those parents to feel like that they're doing something wrong, because I am 100% guilty of it. Like, I am a mom. When I first started my first business, I was on my phone 24/7. And I noticed after a couple of years that I wasn't present for my kids. So I had to set my own boundaries. And now I try my best not to be on my phone when we're doing like family time. But Brian will tell me all the time, like, hello, are you there? And that's something that I still struggle with. And then I do the same to Brian. If I'm like talking to him and I notice that his eyes are not coming up, I'll cross my arms and I'll stare at him, and then he'll look at
Right.
me. I'm like, hello, we're having a conversation. And he'll be like, you're right. I'm sorry. So it's something that we're working on, but I have a child that does have to have that kind of stimulation. I think the electronics, although it can be harmful, has brought so much more into our lives. And this specific time period in this realm that we're living in is very much coated with electronics and that lifestyle, and we just have to find balance. So I just don't want to make parents feel, or moms specifically feel, like they're doing something wrong. It's just all about balance, like making sure that we are um giving, I mean, we're all going to make the mistakes, like we really are. I know that my girls, I was one of those moms that made sure they always had a tablet all the time. Like, they can't be broken. We have to get them fixed, because it was such a part of my day to day. Like, I needed time to do certain things, and that was the way I kept them busy. Now that I've been on this journey, this spiritual journey, I'll be like, get off the phones, turn the TV off, or put music on, go play outside, go find something to do. And I'm almost reverting back to the kind of mom I was in that aspect of me prior to this journey. Um, but there are, like, Jack takes my phone as soon as I come home from work. Mom, phone, mom, phone. If she was here, she would be standing behind me saying, Mom, my phone, can I have it? And I'm like, and I'll be like, I'm using the phone right now. Mom, can I have it? And then, so when I get home from work, we call her daddy. We get on the video. We talk to daddy through video. And then I'm like, hey, you can have the phone, go lay down and go to bed. That is the only way Jack can soothe her brain. So I just want to be very mindful that there are so many scenarios. And I'm not saying that you were segregating anybody, because those points are very important. Like, most families don't sit down at a table for dinner with each other, my family included.
Yeah.
Even though I'm on this spiritual journey and this path, we don't sit down at the table at the same time to eat dinner and have conversations. We try to integrate that in a different way, because dinner time is not a time where everybody's home. I'm at work during dinner hours, and we try to do it at a different time when we all sit down on the couch and we kind of like have conversations, or family game night, or whatever it is that we're doing. I think my suggestion is, if you are struggling with turning your phones off, then take yourself out of the scenario where your phone can't work here. Like, go up a canyon, go camp overnight, go spend the day in a forest somewhere, or a meadow where your phone doesn't have service. Because once you've taken yourself away from the access of that, you can reset your family, you can reset those connections, and then come back, and you realize, when you've taken yourself away from something like that, you can realize, oh my gosh, we do spend a lot of time on our phones. And I was fine over the weekend, and I didn't post anything, or I didn't see anything. I literally don't even remember where I put my phone. And then you come back to it and you realize that maybe I can put my phone up. Maybe I can take a break, and you can integrate small changes to rectify this generation of, their lives are like this, like they're little boxes, in their faces all the time. I think that there's so many ways that we can break away a little, as much as possible, but use it for what it's supposed to be used for. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I so appreciate that perspective, and I agree completely. I am not trying to say get rid of
Right,
electronics in any way. What I'm
right,
trying to say, and what I'm trying to teach people, is that if you want to be in harmony, and if you want your energy aligned, wherever you are, be there all the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
That is the most important thing. If you're on
absolutely.
your phone doing your work, be on your phone and do your work. And then when your children wants to talk to you, or when
Right,
Brian wants to talk to you, don't make him compete. That's what I'm
right,
talking about. It's
right,
like,
exactly.
if you are with your spouse, be with your spouse. If you are with your child, be with your child. and you and I have this difference all the time with social media because I
Right.
do not enjoy social media. And what it
Right.
is for me is it's a wonderful tool, but it's such an easy tool to get completely sucked into and then neglect the people that are more important than a phone, you know? And
Right.
so it's what you're talking about is so real, is like finding that balance. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about is if you have an opportunity to connect with a human without a screen, fucking do it. I'm not saying
Right.
get rid of phones altogether. You know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
And I
Right.
don't want you to have to go up into where there's no service to have balance with your phone. But I think it's extremely important to do that too, you know, like to
Mm-hmm.
completely escape and to connect with earth and to nature. But I do think that parents nowadays really need to ask themselves, where is all of my consciousness? Zoom in, say, I am here, I am in my body more often to really start to notice without shame. You know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be somebody who invokes shame on anyone. I don't want
Right.
anyone to feel bad about their phone habits. I don't
Right.
want anyone to feel bad about anything. What I
Right. Right.
want
Right.
is people to create more awareness about how they are spending their time,
No,
especially
absolutely.
when their children are around. I need breaks, you need breaks, every fucking mom needs breaks. You know, so if you are add me, dear.
No,
If you
don't.
are you know, needing a break, that's not the time to try and connect fully and be present with a child. That's a time to say, mommy needs a break, and then to fully be present in your break time. You know, to not
Absolutely.
be trying to connect with a child and also be trying to escape your child because you don't have the full energy to really do this right now.
Right.
No,
No,
it's I
absolutely.
need to go mindlessly scroll on my phone for 15 minutes because I feel like I'm going to break and I just need to numb out. To be
Absolutely.
aware of yourself, to fully numb out when you need to fully numb out, and so that you can be fully present wherever you are. So I do not want to come across as somebody who's anti-electronics
Right.
or
Right. Right.
anti-special situations. Of course, there are situations where electronics are so helpful and such a blessing. And I completely agree. It's just about balance and learning to be where you are all the way, to be fully where you are. If you're in the digital dimension, do what you need to do in that digital dimension and get out of it and then connect with what's real again, you know.
No, I agree with that 100%. Like, and that's why I love when we have our chats because we do
Mm-hmm.
see so many things in different ways. We live our lives and we have different scenarios that we live in, you and I don't want to see all of these. Hold on, I'm trying to make it so I can see your face because I'm being bombarded. But that's just because because we are so opposite. You don't spend a lot of time on social media. I do spend a lot of time on social media. I do a lot of research when and that's been through my spiritual journey. Like I have gotten so many tools
Yeah.
through my research using social media, and I like to see what other moms are talking about and what other moms are complaining about and what they're going through, and is it similar to me, is it not similar to me, or how can I find a solution to this or that. I will say that even though we are so different in that aspect, that is a completely valid and growth tool to make sure that you are telling yourself, I am here all the way
Right.
when I'm interacting with other people. And the time and the place is 100% correct. It's something that I think we have all gotten away from. I think if any of the moms that are social media savvy and they get on TikTok and you see all these little fun little skits about how you know, they'll be on their phone and they'll play something just to see if it catches the attention of their spouse or their children.
Oh,
And
because
it's
they're on
very
a phone?
interesting because either they're on the phone or they're just not paying attention. Like they're
Okay.
sitting on the couch watching a movie together, but like there's no interaction there. It's a really interesting social experiment, and they do it with children as well, where they'll play something on their electronic, and that's how you know how much of an impact the electronic age has made on our children, where they can hear something from, and they know it's from an electronic. They know it's from a game that they're playing. They know it's from a video that they watch over and over. And it's just really interesting to see the difference in a childhood now versus a childhood when my older kids were being raised or when I was being raised. You know, we went to the movies a lot. We had a Sunday movie with our family when my parents were still together. We watched, we weren't as sheltered as you were in movies. But there was movies that I watched as a kid that I just loved. And they were movies, like quality movies that bring me back to another time. And I see my kids and I'm like, have you ever seen this? Or what are you guys interested in? And it's just a lot of nonsense, a lot of make believe, a lot of not real life lessons I learned a lot from Doris Day and all of these, you know, influential representations of humans as a child. And now there's not really much of that. Everything is so digital. We do have to be mindful of what our kids are watching and what they're spending their time on doing, and remembering that we are all part of the same universe. And sometimes you do need to disconnect, and sometimes you do need to remind yourself, like you said, I'm here wholly. I want to be present all the time. I think as a parent, it can be so mundane to listen to the same story from your children over and over and over. I don't have patience. I'm not a patient person when it comes to story time, I guess. I hate the way my husband tells stories and my daughter tells the same story. I just get to the point and tell me what it is that you're trying to tell me so that so we can move through this really quick. That's not a lesson that I have learned yet, that there is something in the whole message that I might be missing out on. I will be 100%. I am the type of mom who's like, okay, but what did you do? What did you do? What did we do?
Tell me that point.
What's the outcome, you know? And it's funny because you talked about an experience that you had with your son this morning. Me and Piper had a patience experience this morning, speaking about like motherhood and all that stuff. But it's 8:29. We leave the house at 8:30 on the nose to walk to the bus stop. And at 8:29, I said, can I make a cup of coffee? Like I asked her, because I'm on her time. You know, the morning is my children's time to use me and where they need to use me. If I have to do their hair, if I have to make sure they brush their teeth, whatever it is. And I said, can I make a cup of coffee? And she was like, oh, Mom, we have to go. And I said, well, we have a whole minute. And she was like, well, is it going to take a minute? And I was like, I don't know. But the more we talk about it, the longer it's going to take. And she goes, fine, make your coffee quick. So I'm being respectful of her time. So I add everything to my cup and I put it under the Keurig to make my coffee. I know it's going to be longer than a minute, right? I haven't shared that information yet. And she's like, Mom, it's 8:30. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. And she's like, we're going to have to run. I said, okay, just hold on 1 second. I'm going as fast as I can. And I've noticed that her impatience with me mirrors the impatience with her when I need to do something. Okay. So I make my coffee. I said, oh, my ring just flew off. I said, I'm done. Let's go. Okay, come on, let's go. She's like, okay. We get outside. We walk down the driveway. We're in front of my truck. And she's like, hold on. I have to do something. I'm all, wait. We're going to miss the bus. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. And she's like, I waited for you to make your coffee. And I said, yes, you did. And I said, okay, fine. So I'm just like standing there drinking my coffee, and we get there and we get to the bus stop, and I said, hey, look it. And she's like, what? She didn't realize that we were teaching each other something. I said, we're not late. And she was like, what? I was like, we're not late. Like the bus is not even here. We actually have 5 minutes to interact with each other before you get on the bus. And she was like, oh, okay, well, you can go if you want. And I was like, okay. Like, but I'm just going to stand here for a minute and watch you. And when I was walking home, I just chuckled to myself because I was like, she is learning lessons from me. She's reacting to me the way that I react to her. My other kids, my older kids, it would have been like, you can fucking wait. I'm making my fucking coffee, okay? I've done all this stuff for you this morning. You can give me 5 minutes to make my fucking coffee. And then that energy you see from the kids, like, wait, we're going to be late for school because they're excited, goes to like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know, and then be the old me wouldn't let that go. I would keep talking shit. I would bring out so many points of I waited for you to put your fucking shoes on and I waited for you to figure out what the fuck you were going to wear. I waited for you to find your fucking backpack this morning because nobody knew where the fuck it was. That was the mom I was
Yeah.
10 plus years ago. And I still have that part of me very, very prevalent. Sometimes when I feel attacked because I just need a fucking minute, I'll start attacking because that's human reaction. But in this journey that I've been on, I've realized that I have this dialogue now in my head that corrects me. Like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Mm.
look at the way you're making them feel right now. Look at the energy seep from your child. Why are you sucking the energy out of your child before you send them into the world to be surrounded by so many other people that are energy suckers? Everybody's an energy sucker. Everybody. No matter, I don't give a shit if you're right below Gandhi on spirituality. You're an energy sucker. We are all energy suckers. It's part of the creation of our energetic bodies. It's to give and take. People
Yeah.
haven't learned how to give. And when we do give, we're giving such ugly energy that turns into a power struggle with people. And I've realized through the years and changing the way that I react to my children in the last 3 years is I can now see physically and feel emotionally the change in my children when I'm not right, when I'm reacting and not pausing, like you said, and not breathing. And what is the worst that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
Is my reaction matching the outcome of what's going to happen? So if my daughter misses the bus, which for me sends me through the roof, if my daughter misses the bus, what's the worst that's going to happen? I have to get in my car and take her to
Yeah.
school that's right down the street. Okay. For some people, I can see how the reaction would match the reaction because maybe they don't have a car. Maybe there is no other way to get this child to school. That is a justifiable reaction. I don't have any other means. And we have to make sure that we are on time every day because there is no other choice here. I have so many other choices. You know what I mean? Like, we could walk, it's not that far. We could jump in one of the many trucks that sits in front of my house to take my daughter to school. So, but I've noticed that impatience in me, even though I've been on this journey, lives in my children. They are all very impatient. My husband is one of the most patient people as a parent that I've ever met. So when he gets impatient, I am immediately triggered. Like, why are you impatient?
What's
Like,
that?
what's just happened? What's going on? Like, what did I miss? Who do I need to correct? But it's this dialogue now that I have in my mind through this journey of spirituality and growth, really, and self-work, that the inner dialogue will correct me. I could have easily turned this morning into the shittiest morning and sent my daughter, and I've done this recently. This is an everyday process. So I just don't want, it's not like, oh, we figured it out and we're fucking perfect now. Like, we don't have any issues in our life anymore. I have this struggle all the time where I will react to my daughter and send her to school low energy. And then it will eat at me all day because I've grown to a point where I can recognize that I have fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have done something wrong. And then I have to learn and you're faced with it. The beauty of this reality is that you'll be faced with the same scenario over and over and over and over until you learn the lesson. And I am still being faced with that scenario in motherhood of patience. I'm just not a patient person. I just want things to move and continually move in a direction. I don't like to be stagnant. I don't like to feel stuck. And that's a lesson that I have not grasped yet. So I'm continually learning this lesson. And with with Piper, it's so interesting because in motherhood, you seem to view all of your children as they should all be the same,
Mhm.
right? My older three kids were very similar. My older three kids were the most well-behaved kids that I have ever experienced, because, and that's because I ruled them in fear. They were behaved because they were scared of me.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, well, that wasn't so bad because now I have kids that talk back to me. And I'm
Got
like,
opinions.
what is this life? But that's what it is. It's that my older kids weren't allowed to have an opinion. It was my way or no way. My younger kids do have opinions, and it doesn't matter if I raise my voice, it doesn't matter if I threaten somebody. Piper will give me her opinion. Um, and I have to take a deep breath to listen. I'm like, okay, hold on. And I physically have to okay, hold on. Give me 1 second to breathe back in this energy of anger that's boiling inside of me, because who in the fuck do you think you are, you little 3 foot munchkin? I am the boss here. And I've learned through this journey that it is all about listening to our kids, and all of these moments of frustration, all of these moments of crazy energetic outbursts um, are all, they stem from not listening with our to our children. Uh, and I see it in so many of my friends with their children. It is the fact, like, I can see it when I'm looking at somebody else, when I'm seeing somebody else struggle with their child, and I'm like, oh, but they're not listening to their child.
Yeah.
They're trying to say something. And it's really hard to look in the mirror as a parent and see that you are making that same mistake. But the beauty of this journey, the beauty of doing the research and working on yourself and listening to different people and their interactions and how they've grown as parents, is that most of the time the lesson is listening, letting our children be humans. We said it. I said it in the last podcast about this. Is our children's don't belong to us. They don't. They're not ours. Nothing belongs to us. The only thing that belongs to us, is this flesh suit that we've been gifted with. That is what belongs to us. The only thing that belongs to us outside of physical is our reaction. We can control all of that. We can't control our children. Our children are going to make mistakes. And how are they going to learn if they don't make the mistakes? How do we learn? By making mistakes. We try not to do that again. Our children will repeat the same struggle that we have if we don't allow them to make their mistakes, and if we don't learn from our mistakes, if we don't pay attention and change and evolve and try something new. What if you did take a 10-second break like you were explaining? What is the outcome? Will you still be on time? Probably, because time is in our mind. Honestly, like, I was one of those people. I'm still that person. I like to be early. I don't like to be late. I like to be either right on time or early. I'll sit in my car a half an hour just to be on time somewhere. Like, it's just who I am. I don't like people to wait for me to do anything. But I've learned, what's the worst thing if somebody has to wait for me for 5 seconds? What have I avoided by taking my time to worry, to figure out this one moment with my children? What did I avoid? And that's something that I teach my kids all the time now, is look at the bigger picture. So an obstacle has been thrown in front of us. Like, I can't find my shoes. I can't find my jacket. I can't find my keys. That sends me through the roof if I can't find my keys. But what am I avoiding in that moment? What have I avoided? Could it have been, maybe if I left 5 minutes early, I could have been in a car accident? But because I left 5 minutes late, I was saved from a car accident. Like, I always tell, and that's just like an extreme example, but I always tell my kids, like, you guys learn to be impatient from me. If we have to go, we have to go. I've been screamed at by my adult children, my boys specifically, because we're going to be late. And I'm like, and it would hurt my feelings. And I'm like, God, I'm doing the best that I can. But guess what? They learned that from me, because if you're going to make me late, I'm going to scream at you. And it's a lesson that I've learned now, is that our reaction teaches our kids how to react. So if we can change the way that we react in little scenarios, little situations, um, they will change how they react. We're not teaching them that everything is the end of the world. We're not teaching them that our fight or flight mode should be reactive every time the littlest thing goes wrong. And I've noticed that through my own work on myself, my daughter Piper is more easy breezy. Like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. Okay. And she still sees it a little bit. And I still see a little bit where she'll be like, but we're going to be late and I'm going to have to run. Or she'll call me and be like, Mom, I didn't leave till 8:35 and she'll be on her little phone running. I'm running, Mom. I'm running to the bus stop. I'm going to be late. And then 5 minutes later, she'll be like, I wasn't late, Mom. I made the bus. And I'm like, great, but was it worth the energy that you just put into worrying that you were going to miss the bus? The worst thing is that you're going to stay home and you get a break. Maybe you were meant to stay home today. So I don't know. I mean, that's just like one of the things, the biggest things that I've learned outside of when we're talking about patience, I should say. There's been so many other lessons with my children. Anger is a big one, I think, and we could talk about that next time, but patience, I think, is one of the biggest lessons us as mothers can teach ourselves. By your example of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It does change.
Sometimes you got to go back down. It's like you get to 10 and then you come back down to 1 and then maybe you go back up again, but it really helps. I love what you said about listening, because I really think that just creating a safe space for our kids is so important, and listening is the biggest part of that. And another part of it is learning to apologize for the little things, because what you're saying is so right. Our reactions will become their reactions. Our thoughts will become their thought patterns. The way we treat ourselves will become the way they treat themselves. The way we treat others will become it's so real. And so I feel like one thing that I have learned helps my children feel valued, and like a reciprocal part of this relationship is apologizing for the really little things, because it really just gives them like a sense of, oh, I matter. And that builds over time. So if there is a negative interaction, like Anthony's running out late and I snap at him, or I'm grumpy or something, and then that eats at me, and then he comes home from school and it's nothing big, it's just small, and say, hey, I'm really sorry I was grumpy this morning. I was struggling about other things and I took that out on you, and I'm so sorry. How was your day? Just like, don't make a big deal about it, but and let him be like, that's okay. And then it really is this beautiful trust building, safe space building, cultivating practice of just learning to apologize about the little things, because people don't realize how powerful that is, especially for small kids. Big kids, of course, too, but they don't realize how powerful it is to say, I'm sorry, to a 3-year-old. That means that they matter. And just kind of seeing and feeling a situation from the child's perspective, offering compassion and empathy rather than judgment and criticism, being on their team. One of the most powerful things I ever learned as a mom is that, and it's so simple, but it's so profound, is my children want the same thing I want. They want to be happy. They want to be at peace. They don't want to be right. Nobody is wanting, no, everyone wants to be at peace and happy. They think maybe being right will give them some sense of peace and happiness. But at the end of the day, we all want harmony and peace and happiness. And so kids are actually really reasonable if you can cultivate this relationship of communication where it's like, hey, I don't appreciate when you act like that. Is there a reason that you're feeling the need to act like that? Can we talk about it? And like, let them communicate. Not only does it make your life easier as a mom, but it really creates kids who know who they are, who are proud of themselves, who are kind of self-motivated, guiding themselves, and who are totally able to apologize when they do something wrong and communicate with other people because they've learned this communication with their parent. And so my challenge again and again to parents is just to without shaming yourself, just start to
Right.
practice. Look at it as a practice. Notice
Hmm.
your triggers and practice creating just a little bit more of a safe space in your home, because your energy as a powerful woman becomes the energy of the home. And you
Yeah.
have to take radical accountability of that power, that gift that you have as a mother, and say, I choose love. I choose peace, because I know that choosing peace for myself is choosing peace for my whole family.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you brought up like one little thing that popped up into my head is, saying I'm sorry for the little things, but accepting when your child doesn't accept the apology. Our
Mm,
children don't have to accept our apology.
that's beautiful.
Like
Yes.
it it doesn't make them wrong. That you can't be like, well, I said sorry, so it's over. It might not be over for them. And so I think moving into that space of like apologizing for the little thing and letting them be like, oh, it's okay. But what do you do when they say, no, it's not okay? You made me feel,
Mm-hmm.
and letting them release that emotion. I think that's the other side of it as well, because we're so quick to be, especially with our younger children, we are gods to our younger children. They just want to make us happy. And sometimes we have taught them through the way that they see us interact with other individuals, especially people that have been in abusive relationships. Our children will see us accept an apology quickly because we're trying to save the moment, or we're trying to
Sure.
move into a safe space for ourselves. I think it's very important, if we're in a healthy, safe home, accepting when somebody doesn't want to accept your apology and being okay with that, and saying, I specifically, and Piper, I love this little girl because I learned so much more from Piper than I can teach her. I mean, that's the God honest truth. I learned so much more. And sometimes I'll have a moment where I'm like, okay, I fucked up. I'll walk into my room. You feel awful. You start to feel that guilt build up. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go talk to her. And I have to talk to myself. I have to really have a conversation with myself to get me to a point where I can go and say, I'm sorry for the way that I acted. It was out of line and I shouldn't have made you feel that way. I'm sorry. And prepare myself for my beautiful little soul to look at me and say, I don't want to be around you. Like, I just don't want to, can you get away from me, please? And it's heartbreaking. And you're just like, oh my God. But guess what? We do that to our children as well. I'm not in a good mood right now. I just need you to go away from me. And to put yourself as a parent in the shoes of this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 year old child, and realize that the way that we feel when our children rejects us and we have to accept it is the same way they feel when we reject them. So it's not always just, easy as saying, hey, I'm sorry, but allowing our children to have the capacity to deal with the idea of, maybe I'm not okay with how you treated me this morning. You ruined my whole day. And letting them feel that, and then letting them have the space to come to us when they're ready to accept the apology and say, okay, I'm fine now.
That is so great and so important. And it goes in line with just accepting that you can't fix everything as a mom, too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always going to be peaceful. It's not always going to
Mm-hmm.
be happy. Your kid's not always going to be happy with you just because you're not yelling at them, you know?
Right.
There's still communication where it's like, no, I don't feel, if they go in the bubble, it's like, I fucking hate you right now. And I have to say, okay, that's
Okay.
hard for me to hear, and I love you. I love you. I've definitely had some kids scream, I hate you, and me have to say, I love you so much, even in these difficult moments. But
Yeah.
learning that you don't have to fix everything for your kids is so important, because I used to think that if my children were suffering, I was failing, and that is not true. suffering and struggle are the mechanism for growth, and we are robbing our children of so much if we don't allow them to struggle a little bit, you
And
know?
to feel those feelings,
Right.
like,
And to say, like, you know, there are times where it's like a child will ask something, and it's not, I'm not their bestie. I'm not saying like, sure, just to say yes, you know, it's like, no, it's a no. And we have to have a difficult conversation. But what there is respect and reciprocity there, where it's like, it sucks, and I'm so sorry that you're not happy with me right now, and I love you so much, and I hope that you can get through this, or whatever it is.
right.
But it's not, you can't ever expect life to be just perfect and happy all the time. Not every apology is going to get accepted, you know?
No, I
And
mean,
that
look
is
at it in the
okay.
sense, if you look at it in the sense of like in your relationship, like sometimes we cross lines with our spouses and they don't have to accept our apology, and they can, as an adult, say, listen, this was too much. And I think we just need to take a break for a minute. You go there, I'll go here. And then once you've been able to process those emotions, you can come back together. That is a hard lesson that I learned with Brian.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that filtered down into my children. If my child is having an awful day and I can see that they're snappy and they're whiny and they're just, their level is at a 10 or more, sitting down and say, hey, what's going on? And they're like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, then scream. Go in your room and scream. Go in your room and feel all of the emotions about what's going on, and then come back to me, because that's what I have to do. Now, I'm to a point in my life where I don't have to go and scream necessarily, but I need to be with myself, cry the cry, feel the tears, you know, wash my face, bring myself back together, and realize, okay, I'm over it. And then I can come and join the rest of the family again, and giving my children the space, because I think as parents, we're so cautious of like, no, we don't do tantrums. We don't do, that's a no. We don't do tantrums. In that realm of parenting, I've learned so much from Jack. Jack cannot regulate her emotions. She's 100% happy. She's 100% mad. She's 100% sad. She's 100% going to beat your ass if she feels like it. That is just who she is. She can't regulate that. But the beauty that I have learned from these very special children with autism and sensory disorders is that because they can't be told, we don't do that, stop it, they have to release that energy from their body. I have learned so much from that, because I can watch this beautiful little redhead scream and kick and throw things and just release this like incredible amount of energy, of frustration, of anger, of sadness. And when she's done, she's done. And she comes back so full of love and calm, and she'll lay her head on you and be like, how does she say? I love you. I love you, Mom. And I'm like, I love you too, sweetie. And it's like, she's over it. She's let that out, and we can move on, and we never have to visit that moment again in our life. We are, for our regular children, and regular is like a word I don't like to use, but I see we don't give them the space to feel those emotions a lot of the times. And that's another lesson that has come out so prevalent. I can't even talk. I'm going to have a seizure or something. It's come out so strongly in the last couple of years that we have to let our children feel those. If our children are angry with us, let them be angry with you, because we have to always remember that we're teaching our kids how to interact with people when we're no longer in the room. And if we teach our kids that they're not allowed to be angry with us for what we've done to them, for a moment that they didn't feel was right, guess what? You're setting your child up to accept all behavior from everybody. And that's why I think there's so many, and specifically women and a lot of men, because I feel like my husband was raised to accept behavior. I think it's very common in a religious family to accept all behavior without question. My poor husband accepted some shitty behavior from me, and I knew he would accept it. Like, I knew he would. And the beauty is, even though he's not on the same path that I'm on, and my children are not on the same path that I'm on, I have learned that it's okay for them not to accept the behavior, and and my children are learning from my husband, who is also growing without trying to grow, because I'm changing, I'm making moves. He sees how I am with the children now, where I'm like, no, 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 it's okay. Like, she can be angry with me. Go to your room and slam the fucking door as hard as you want to. It's a fucking door. I don't care anymore. Okay? Slam it if that's going to make you feel better. Go scream bloody murder in your room. Let it out. I am going to make sure that I am in the space of, she is dealing with something personally. It has nothing to do with me. And let them feel that, and then tell me, I am not okay with what you just did. And my husband, they're seeing the example now of my husband looking at me when I'm in a mood because of whatever fucking planet is wherever, and that's me giving somebody else the blame. Or because I'm in a bad mood because I haven't slept, and I'm just like being a rotten bitch, for my husband to turn around and look at me and be like, you know, Ingrid, you're not behaving. Like, you're being awful to all of us right now. And I'm not okay with it. Like, knock it the fuck off. And him just saying that, I don't accept what you're doing right now. The way that you're treating us snaps me back. And I'm like, you're right. I'm in a bad mood. I'm going to go lay down. Like, I'm going to go fix myself. Give me the space to fix myself. And realizing that I have to give my children the space to fix themselves, to regulate their emotions, to let out the anger, to be able to look at me and say, I don't like you right now. I don't want to be around you right now. And as a mother, I think it's so hard for us to accept that we could fuck up to a point where our kids are like, I need some space from you, because our immediate reaction is, no, you're mine and I love you and I need you to know that I'm sorry and I love you, and accept my apology, because I am not going to be okay if you don't. You actually are going to be okay if they don't accept your apology. And your children will learn to be okay if you don't accept their apology. If they have been awful and you say, you know what? And if we practice this with our children, teaching them to use the right verbiage and say, I'm not okay with the behavior that I just saw from you right now. So I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to go to my room. I think that you should go and deal with whatever you're dealing with. And when we're both okay, we can come back and then we can revisit this. And being okay with that conversation with our children teaches our children to stand up for themselves and say, you will not speak to me that way, whether it be an employee, a coworker, a friend, a boyfriend, an aunt, an uncle. Teaching our children that it is okay to not be okay with somebody else's behavior comes from the way that we interact with them at a very young age. Teaching them that it is okay to say, no, I will not accept you screaming at me like that. I'm sorry that you've had a bad day. I don't accept that, so I'm going to remove myself. I think it's this broad spectrum of this sponge that our children are born with. And we're so quick to let society tell us that you can't show your emotions. You can't say no. You always have to be willing and able to accept anything that somebody throws at you. No, that is not correct. And we need to start now. And even with our adult children, start now saying, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you. Or it's okay for you to say, no, Mom, I don't want to do that with you today. And making that a safe space in all aspects of our home, not just to be honest and free with our emotions, but being safe enough to say, no, I don't accept this. And that is something that I've learned so strongly on this journey, saying, no, I don't accept this. I will not accept this in my energy field. No, I do not accept the behavior, the way that you spoke to me, what you're doing right now. And if we can use it with the emotional side of parenting, it will build their physical boundaries of using their words and their space to say, I don't accept this type of behavior, and making sure that they understand that we're just humans, and it's okay if we've done something wrong to tell us that we've done something wrong. And it would prevent so much more trauma that comes out of our children because of us, not on purpose, but I could imagine, I mean, I could rattle off so many times where I was not allowed to have an emotion or say that this was not okay or tell my parents that I was wrong, because if I did, the reaction was violent.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. We repeat that with our children. And I did that early in my mothering journey with my children. I repeated that, like, you are not allowed to tell me that I'm wrong. And I've changed that with my other kids, where Piper sometimes understands that I am in a zone where you have to shake me out of it. And she'll say, Mom, you're not listening to me. And I'm like, oh, but she's safe enough to feel that she can raise her voice to get my attention. My other kids would have never spoken to me that way, because it would have been an immediate violent reaction of like, you don't fucking talk to me like that. And now when I see it from other people, it breaks my heart because I recognize myself. And now I see who I am now. And it carries a lot of guilt for a lot of parents, where we're just like, why did we do that to our older children? Like, why did we make those mistakes? The beauty in that, and this is what I wanted to touch on when we first started this podcast, and I'll do it as quickly as I possibly can, is, would I change the kind of parent I was before? Would I change things that I did in the past? And I have to say 100%, like, no, I would not change that, because the way that I was and the way that we grew up, whether it caused trauma or not, it has shaped the person that I am now, and it has shaped the way that my children are now. My children know what kind of parents they want to be, and they know what kind of parents they don't want to be. And they learn those lessons from my mistakes. Yeah. I learned those lessons from my mother's mistakes. I know what I want to do. I know what I've done, and I know what I don't want to continue into the next generation. And it's such an important lesson, especially now for me, because I am a grandmother now, and there are these two sweet, beautiful little souls on this planet that will either suffer because of the example that I've given, or will never have to experience violence or anger in the way that my children experienced it. And is there a chance that maybe they will? Yes, absolutely. But there is a reason for everything that happens. And I can sit here in this moment and say, do I regret things that I've done? Absolutely. I regret the way that I reacted in the beginning of motherhood. I regret not standing up for myself in the beginning of motherhood. I regret that my children had to go through things that I would not have ever dreamed they had to go through because of decisions that I made. But would I change it? No, I would not, because there are lessons in our storyline for a reason. And all we can do is do better, and the storyline of the children that came after them will have a better outcome because of what happened here. They know right from wrong. They see what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do. And I know that if my life had been different at all, one little thing, almost the butterfly effect or whatever it's called, the Mothman effect or whatever, if you change one thing, the outcome is completely different. I am okay with who I am now. I accept my flaws, and I accept what I'm changing as a mother. And I can say, why would not change it? Because my children are who they are. They have survived the life that was written out for them because of what we went through in the past. I have survived. I am right here, right now, because of what I experienced so young in life. And I know my children, my younger children, will not have to experience any of that now, because I did it already, because their older siblings have done it already. And their life, there'll be different challenges, different experiences, but they will never have to live through what we lived through, because it was meant for us to live through. The mistakes were meant for us to make, so they didn't have to do it. so they didn't have to relive that. And I think it's a beautiful way of looking at motherhood when you are on this journey and you are questioning, I am a horrible mother. Why did I do that to my children? Look at your children, your adult children if you're there, but look at who they are now. How could you change who they are now? You know, like I see Jacob and I'm like, you are so, and this makes me so emotional, like you're so perfect. Like in my eyes, you're so perfect and you're going to make mistakes. And that is part of your perfection. And I see Matthew and I'm like, you are so driven and determined because you will never allow your future family to struggle the way that we struggled. And you learned that because of the mistakes that we made early on. And I see my beautiful daughter, Samara, and she is so beautifully sheltered in a healthy and semi-unhealthy way, that I know that she will never be aggressive the way that I was when she was little. Like she is just so caring and nurturing. And those are all the lessons that they learned from my mistakes. So do I regret things? Absolutely. But would I change them? Absolutely not, because we are who we are now because of those. We've learned lessons and we're growing. That is what growth is, essentially, making the mistakes and moving on from them. I mean, that's my opinion.
I agree. It's all just beautiful evolution and it all builds on itself. And I feel like something that's so helpful as we close out to remember is that the tiniest changes really make a huge difference. Like you think about, AJ used this analogy in a Sunday lesson recently about a ship on a trajectory. And if you literally just change 1 degree, it goes a completely different direction. So don't be hard on yourself. Be patient with yourself. Become curious rather than critical of yourself and your children. Just enjoy the process and recognize that even the tiniest little change, maybe you'll catch 1 trigger out of 5. That is 1 degree, and that is beautiful, and build on that and just enjoy the process is my best advice. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love you, and I'm
I
so
love
grateful
you.
for your authenticity and realness, because I do believe that we have to open up about these hard things in order to see real change. You know, I really want other moms to feel comfortable and safe being real too, because if we cannot acknowledge these issues and weaknesses in the mistakes, we can't rectify them, you know, for our children or for ourselves. And so just airing it out and getting it out there gives other women permission to be just as real and just as authentic, you know. And so I honor you for that. I love you so much.
I love you. I think that because we're so similar and so different in so many different ways, I think when we do have these conversations, I think it's so beautiful to see, because I personally believe that, like, you are one of the strongest moms. You are one of the most patient and one of the most nurturing human beings that I have ever been around in my life. I was going to say adult life, but my life in general. You have taught me so much about being patient and listening and looking at my children as like actual people, and have helped me grow into the kind of mother that I am now. And I think there's something so beautiful in just experiencing you with your children. If anybody has the opportunity to see what kind of mother you are in person, it is magical. It really is magical. You've taught me so much about that, and you really do allow me to be 100% honest about the kind of mother that I've been and the kind of mother that I'm turning into. And you have been such a powerful force in that for me personally. I think it's beautiful that we get to share these stories about ourselves. Your insight on motherhood is beautiful, and I don't ever want anybody to, if they criticize you, I will fuck them up. But I just love the influence that you personally have had on me on motherhood, and the ability to let me just vomit who I really am and not feel judgment for that. And I want other mothers to feel that comfortable coziness of, I can say the truth. I can be honest. and learn from that and move on from that and let that go. You really do provide that space. And I just love you for that always. And I hope that I am returning that for you.
You always have been such a safe space. You have taught me so much. So thank you. I love you so much.
I love
I
you
can't wait to
too.
see you next week.
I know. Next Thursday, y'all, we'll be here.
All right.
So be
Love
there,
you,
be
Iggy.
square.
Have a great day.
I love you too. Bye.
Take care.